socially distance. Mask up, America.
Everything you do here, here, or here
All right. Sorry, rearranging everyone on the screen here. Boom, 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 boom. Okay. Well, hopefully we won't be doing this much longer. I think I got everyone on the governing body. All right. It is 7 o'clock and I call this meeting to order. This is the City of North Kansas City regular council meeting, May 18th. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Smith.
Here.
Councilmember Tull.
Here.
Councilmember Clevenger.
Here.
Councilmember Roberts.
Here.
Councilmember Clark.
Here.
Councilmember Palumby.
Here.
Councilmember Graves.
Here.
Councilmember Saper.
Here.
Pledge of Allegiance, which I have Councilmember Smith.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, next item is the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
All right, call the roll, please.
Councilmember Smith.
Yes.
Councilmember Tull.
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Roberts.
Yes.
Councilmember Clark.
Yes.
Councilmember Palumby.
Yes.
Councilmember Graves.
Yes.
Councilmember Saper.
Yes.
8-0, motion carried.
Next up, comments from the public. Do we have anyone from the public wishing to make a comment?
If there's anybody in the attendees section who would like to make a comment tonight, please use the raise your hand feature of Zoom, or if you are dialed in through your phone, press *9 to be recognized. Mr. Mayor, nobody is indicating that they would like to speak.
All right, thank you. With no one indicating there are no comments from the public, we will move on to the consent agenda. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Move to approve.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Smith.
Yes.
Councilmember Tull.
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Roberts.
Yes.
Councilmember Clark.
Yes.
Councilmember Palumby.
Yes.
Councilmember Graves.
Yes.
Councilmember Saper.
Yes.
8-0, motion carried. Number
Right.
11, engagement of consultant strategic planning session, resolution number 21-031.
Eric, please.
Thank you, sir. I'll call on the Assistant City Administrator, Kim Nakahota.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The city last engaged in a strategic planning goal setting session back in June of 2018. The process resulted in goals and objectives and action steps that set the general direction for the city and has served for a guide over the last several years. In 2000, the city was on schedule to revisit this session in 2020, and that is when COVID-19 began entering our country. At the last city council meeting, we discussed resetting the planning and goaling session, and the city council indicated that Friday, August 20th and Saturday, August 21st will be dates that will work best for the next strategic planning goal setting session. This session will be located at the North Kansas City Parks and Recreation Center. Again, the goal of this would be to form the new city's strategic plan, which would be about the next 2 to 3 years of items that you would like to see the city accomplish. Right now, we have Patty Gentrip with the KU Public Management Center on the call, should you have any questions. If not, we do have a resolution attached to the city council, should you like to move forward.
All right, thank you. Do we have anyone with questions? Seeing no questions, do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Tull,
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Roberts,
Yes.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbi,
Yes.
Councilmember Graves,
Yes.
Councilmember Saper.
Yes.
8-0, motion carried. Item number 12, engagement of executive search firm, recruitment of new city administrator, resolution number 21-032.
Eric.
Thank you, sir. As you know, I will be retiring on July 2nd. The City Council determined to retain a firm to provide executive recruitment services for a new city administrator. Staff has asked several firms who perform public sector recruitment services in Missouri and the Midwest to provide proposals to perform this service, and these are provided to members of the governing body. And the mayor indicated that Baker Tilly US LLP is the consensus choice of the governing body to provide these services. Therefore, before the City Council for action is an engagement agreement with Baker Tilly. In the event that council approves this agreement, then following this item on the agenda is a budget amendment to accomplish that engagement. Staff would recommend approval. On our call tonight, if you have any questions, is the consultant for Baker Tilly that would be heading up this engagement, Art Davis.
All right, thank you. Any questions? Councilmember Clevenger.
Not really a question, just a comment that looking forward to working with the Baker Tilly. I liked how they had an emphasis on diversity in the many organizations that they have ties with as far as recruiting. And if I remember correctly, they helped us find Eric. So that was a great hire. So I'm fully in support of this, just that comment.
Any further councilmember comments? Seeing none, is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
All right, call the roll, please.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Tull,
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Roberts,
Yes.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbi,
Yes.
Councilmember Graves,
Yes.
Councilmember Saper.
Yes.
8-0, motion carried. Number 13, budget amendment, engagement of executive search firm, resolution number 21-037.
Move to approve.
Second.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Tull,
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Roberts,
Yes.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbi,
Yes.
Councilmember Graves,
Yes.
Councilmember Saper.
Yes.
8-0, motion carried. Item 14, appointment of interim city administrator.
All right, I guess, Eric, I go ahead and take this one. Is this one mine?
Yes, sir. Please
Okay.
do.
No, so just the request tonight is to approve the appointment of Kim Nakahoto as our interim city administrator. As you know, she's our current assistant, and this would be a natural fit. The second part to that would be increasing her pay from her current salary to the minimum of the range for city administrator, which is $125,493. Does anyone have any additional questions on that? Go ahead, Councilmember Cloutier.
Just a question to clarify, as far as increasing the pay, that applies while she's serving as interim city administrator until we hire a new one, correct?
Correct. Yes, that would be my understanding. During the time period in which she serves in this role, she would make that increased pay. If there are no further questions, is there a motion to that?
Move to approve.
Second.
All right.
Councilmember Smith,
Absolutely.
Councilmember Toll,
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger,
You bet.
Councilmember Roberts,
Yes.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbi,
Yes.
Councilmember Graves,
Yes.
Councilmember Saper.
Yes.
8-0, motion carried. Item 15, Burlington Complete Street Project Water Line Replacement, resolution number 21-040.
Here.
Thank you, sir. I'll call on the Community Development Director, Sarah Copeland.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As we have been working on the Burlington Corridor Complete Street Plan, our engineer, which is Olson Associates, is currently in the utility coordination phase. They have identified a question for us about adding to the scope of work of this construction to add a complete replacement of the water line on Burlington. The existing water line is a 10-inch cast iron pipe. It's on the east side of Burlington, so it's immediately underneath our phase 1 construction project. We believe that this line dates from the 1950s. So if we did nothing as part of this project, it would probably be a good candidate for replacement in the near future. But replacing this water line while we're working on our Burlington project gives us some benefits. It would allow us to avoid any future water main breaks or valve failures that would require emergency repair. It allows us to take advantage of the planned construction to avoid additional excavation work. And once we have put in our phase 1 improvements, any future excavation would require us to also replace the work we've already done in repairing or replacing any future water line. If we do not relocate the water line as part of our project, where there will be some spot replacement required as we do our work, we are going to be adding a lot of new and relocating storm sewer lines as part of this project. And that will require us, there are going to be some conflicts with the existing water line that will require us to do some spot replacement. Our engineer estimates that about 37% of the existing water line would require replacement to avoid those storm sewer conflicts. A risk with doing spot replacement is that we may encounter lead joints in the older pipes, and it is best practice to replace any lead joints that are found, even if the replacement is not planned, to reduce potential contamination risk. We cannot say how many lead joints we might find in the existing pipe. And of course, the second risk is that the pipe is reaching the end of its functional life and will need to be replaced soon. If we leave older sections in place, it will likely need to be replaced at some point in the near future. For these reasons, we're recommending replacing the water line now to avoid those risks and to reap the benefits of tearing up Burlington once. So before you tonight is a task order with Wilson for design of the pipe replacement. We estimate that the cost of adding this to our project is approximately $1.5 million. We do have Jonathan Hofflander, who is our project manager with Olson, on the call tonight. If you have questions about this, I would be happy to answer them also, and I'm sure that Anthony Sands would as well.
Councilmember Smith.
Sarah, thanks for the rundown on this. I mean, this is a no-brainer that we need to get it done because the cast iron pipe is long past its useful life anyway. We've already, I believe, had a number of emergency repairs on it. Plus, with the added capacity demands from new developments, apartments coming in, it's just we need a better delivery system for the water, or we'll have continued problems. The two things I have questions about. So the $1.5 million, at the point when we do this install, the excavation, and it's already going to be dug up and exposed, I assume, because we're redoing the entire road. Is the $1.5 million including additional excavation? It just seems like a big price tag if it's already opened up. Can somebody talk about that?
Well, I will ask Jonathan Hofflander to weigh in on this. I want to say first, though, that we asked them to give us like a ballpark figure for complete replacement. They have not done an opinion of probable cost on this, or, you know, he's giving us a ballpark. So I'll let him kind of talk more about how that ballpark was arrived at, but please keep in mind that this is a ballpark. It's not an opinion of probable cost, which requires them to do the design work to figure out, you know, how many feet of pipe are we talking about, how many valves, all of those details. And that's what goes into a more concrete cost estimate. But I'll turn that over to Jonathan.
Thanks, Sarah. Councilman Smith, that's a really good question. The majority of the work on the Burlington Street Improvements Project is more associated with the pavement replacement. So what's happening in that top 6 to 12 inches of that surface and reconfiguring what's happening there. The existing water main, from looking at record drawings, and we potholed it at a number of locations, up and down the 2-mile corridor, that existing water main, from what we are seeing, is anywhere between 4 to 6 feet deep. So there will be, you know, a lot of disruption to the surface with redoing the pavement and redoing the fine grading with what's happening at the surface level. But for the most part, in those areas where those storm sewer conflicts are not, don't expose the water main right there, you still got to dig down and replace it. Also, when this water main gets installed or replaced, it will be replaced in a new trench off to the side of the existing water main as well too. So it's a new spot, a new path where that excavation would occur. Sometimes it's a different trade and or a different subcontractor that the contractor may bring on to do more specialty water main work. And so, you know, we have all of those type of things we gotta think about and put into the consideration. So yes, some of the water main may be, they may uncover it during construction of the proposed improvements, but the majority of the existing water main will not be exposed during the normal pavement construction or storm sewer construction.
Okay, I appreciate that. What I don't want to run into is two things where if we were already going to be digging up a certain part, that we're also paying somebody else to dig that part up as well. That would be the benefit of doing it at the same time. So sounds like you keep an eye on that. Second piece is, you know, most of the rest of our agenda is times when we've had an engineer. I'm not sure if you guys were involved in any, but they guessed at a price and it was wildly off. So I don't want to see that happen with this one as much as possible. And I know this is a ballpark. It may be completely different when we see it, but that's what I'm asking the question for. So thanks for the comment. One other thing, I've looked at the task order and the $197,400 line item that's just jumps out at me is extended project management from 2019 to present. Build 30 man days of 240 hours on a senior engineer, nearly $50,000. Can we talk about what that is? That sounds like we're being billed for extending it after the fact. So what's going on there?
Yeah, when we originally had the project under contract with the city, that was back in 2017, and our anticipated completion date on that project was in October of 2019. And so We are well beyond that as we currently sit. And then to add in the water main improvements and to get through the needed next steps on the project, we're anticipating the project would be advertised for bid later this fall. And so that brings us to October of 2021. And that is for that time that we didn't originally anticipate needing to have the project open, continue to coordinate with MoDOT, continue to coordinate with the city, and continue to do the various project management and coordination needs that have that the last 2 years have required on the project. So that's what that is.
So this is paying for work already done? Is that
for the
what?
most part, yes.
Okay, so if we don't approve the task order, that doesn't get paid. You get so. I'm having trouble understanding that 240 hours of work were done and never billed, and now we're approving paying for them at just the biggest line item. It's a quarter of the budget there. I don't know. It just seems odd the way it's plugged in there.
Yeah, and so that work has been billed for, but what it has done is it's eroded the budget that we had for the project faster than what we had anticipated. And so now the project has taken longer than what we originally anticipated, what we built the original contract and fee estimate around. And because of that additional time, we need additional budget to continue the project management services through. So it's just for the added and the additional project management time over that period. We are, there's no additional design services or, for anything else other than the additional water main design. So that's another clear scope adder there.
Okay.
Councilmember Safer.
This whole thing begs the question, why is the water department not available to answer questions? Why are they not involved directly in this coming before the council? The second part is that this is obviously going to be the first of many, many cost increases in this, what will probably turn out to be a $30 million project in order to give us a picture postcard Burlington. Whether it's functional, whether it improves anything for the residents of North Kansas City is quite questionable. But again, where's the water department online?
Sir, the water department has been involved in this. One of the reasons that we waited to bring this before you this spring was to get Anthony Sands on board, and he has reviewed this task order and the work associated and is supportive of bringing this before you.
I would like to hear from him.
Sure, Councilman Saper, this is Anthony Sands. When I started with the city, as Sarah said, Pat Halver had already involved the water department in this concept. From the water department, what I've learned is that there are several Band-Aids on this pipe already, which kind of contributed to the idea that, it's probably a good idea to replace it. Having the new construction on top of it, which is only, we're asking for a problem if one of those Band-Aids was to have a problem in the future. So yeah, as Sarah said, the water department had been involved, and then I've continued to look into them as well. And I do agree with these recommendations.
Councilmember Cluster.
First of all, I agree that this is something that needs to be done. Now, certainly costs are only going to increase in the future. And while it's being constructed on the Burlington, I think it's a good idea. Thank you, Jesse, for pulling out that one line item. I had a question on that one as well. That's been answered. The only other question, not so much on this project, but just on like when we're doing things on Armor, improvements, possibly on Swift or whatever, when we get around to that, are we looking at those water lines there as well when we're doing construction to see if we have any old pipes there that need to be replaced?
The work that we've done to date for the Armor Complete Street hasn't involved any excavation because it's all been on top of existing pavement, with the exception of where we saw cut to add curb. So we have not looked into we haven't done the utility coordination work that would identify issues like on Burlington. And so I can't speak to whether Anthony has identified any future projects where this kind of coordination might be valuable, but so far the work that we have done has not involved this level of utility coordination.
Councilmember Roberts, and then Toll.
This question's for Jonathan. You mentioned that the excavation is going to be only about 2 feet on the initial project, and that this water pipe is about 4 feet down. Is it pretty possible or pretty probable, because we're only talking about 24 inches there, that this could disrupt those existing lines if we don't plan to replace them, and then that 37% that's already going to be replaced could go up significantly as we find more issues probably during the construction phase?
It could. I don't have x-ray glasses as much as I want to know what's in the ground along every foot of this and every utility that may or may not be there. Unfortunately, I don't have that ability, and we don't have that technology quite yet. I hope it's coming one day in the future, so we can get ahead of some of these type of things, but it's, you know, we're just not quite there yet. So yes, that is always a risk when we look at this type of rehab work or extensive new construction work in an existing corridor like this, especially a prime corridor like this with many utilities that are in here. So you know, we know the limits of where our storm sewer improvements will need to be for the project. And we have a good idea of where the existing water main is. But there may be additional impacts once the ground is opened up, because we can't tell where it is on, you know, every foot along the corridor. We have a good idea. One call goes out there, they mark it. The water department goes out and marks it whenever those one call requests are made, but that's usually plus or minus 2 feet of accuracy. And that's a limitation of the technology that's used to go out there and market. So that's our best idea of where that is. So you're absolutely right. You know, in some of these locations, if that water main is 2 feet moved over the wrong way, it may get really tight, and it could make it more challenging during construction, and the relocation limits may need to grow at that time to facilitate construction of the project. And then at that time, you got a contractor that's on site, and they will have to shut down or be slowed up on their work until this newly uncovered conflict is remediated and relocated. And most of the time when stuff like that happens or that's occurred, you know, they're going to look for additional time, and they're going to look for additional money on the contract as well too.
Thank you. Yeah, to me, it's an unfortunate expense, but it seems like one that's absolutely necessary, and it'd be pretty ridiculous not to approve. I think 60% of essentially 60% that we're gonna plan for now, if 37% is already gonna have to be replaced. So thank you, Jonathan.
Councilmember Tull.
I know it's a big ticket item, but I also think that it's very wise to do this step, and it's something the council has said in this last year with all of our high costs, that we want to be proactive with these water lines. I do have a couple questions. I just want to make sure, just a clarifying question from what Councilmember Smith was talking to you about. When your item says extended project management from mid 2019 to present, you're really talking about work that's been done just in the last few months, right?
That is for the those project management activities from, it really would be November 2019 through 2020. Now we're 5 months into 2021, and when we're looking and looking at the what's happening with the schedule on the project with this going to bid later, probably later in 21, that's where we're estimating that additional project management time. The majority of it has already occurred. There will be a little bit more coming in front of us too.
Okay, so this is the 2021 work that's being billed?
It's to extend our budget, so to account for the work that was not anticipated and not included in the original scope of the project. The original scope of the project estimated the hour design services, and the project would be advertised for bid. So our contract would be done in October of 2019. And so because the project has extended on, largely we're going through easements. There was a lot of shakeup in the early part of 2020. But we still had to keep the project on, keep the project going. We had to be responsive to city questions and needs. We had to be responsive to MoDOT questions and needs during that time. And it's there. It just adds up over the course of 2 years.
No, I get it. I'm just trying to wrap my mind around, because you said it's hours that have already been completed, but it's some of that, but some of it's for future hours. I was just trying to make sure I fully understood that before we move forward.
Correct. That's what it is. And so we still have some design left to complete, but for that additional work that we have already done, we have had to bill against our design budgets in order to extend that project management through the period up to today. And so we still have some design work left to go, and we don't have, we won't have the budget there to finish the project all the way through.
So doing the engineers is really just refunding they had taken from the design budget?
Yeah, that's essentially how it's worked, because the whole project is a hourly not to exceed project is the contract structure and the compensation structure. And so so that's how it from the accounting standpoint, that's how it's worked.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Smith.
All right, Jonathan, I appreciate those answers. I have no clarity. I'm sorry, I have no clarity on what that is. And all the things about designing this next part are all the other line items in the task order. If there was a not to exceed budget, it's unfortunately a not to exceed. So we can't just grab extra money and throw it in to make it work for what was done before. So this may be a question for staff. Staff, can we approve the task order minus that line item for $151,800 and then ask Olson to bring us what that actually is made up, the $45,600? Because I have honestly no idea what that is still, and I'm not going to approve $50,000 that I don't understand. So can we carve that out?
I don't believe that we can carve that out of the task order because it's written as one extension of our contract. We can ask Olson to divide up into two contracts or to two task orders if you'd like. I will say I recommended that Jonathan go ahead and put these items together. So this was done at my recommendation to him. We are, as he said, he's juggled hours in the previous original task order to accommodate the fact that this project has just taken a long time, and they have spent a lot of time on project management that they did not anticipate spending at the beginning of the contract. So if your direction is to divide that up into 2 items to bring back to you, we can do that. But I would note that we have asked them to do work beyond our original task order. And so you will, if you want to see two task orders, we can do that.
I do. And I'm not trying to be difficult, but I want to understand what we're approving fully. And then I understand that projects can get a little out of sorts as things get discovered, but I'm a little concerned that things were done outside of the task order at this additional cost, because that seems to be the purpose of a task order, is to find the task and then, execute. If there were big changes of $50,000 worth, seems like it would have come back to council to extend that rather than just putting it in on the back end of this, this other part that's very important to do. So I want to get this moving forward and not hold it up. But if we can slice it into 2 task orders and discuss what actually was in that line item, maybe get some receipts on hours, that kind of thing. I don't think anything, nefarious is going on. I just want to see.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yeah, Eric, please.
So if the council is desirous of doing what Councilmember Smith is suggesting, then I would suggest deferring action on this item tonight and let us bring this back to you, perhaps as 2 separate task orders at a future meeting, hopefully your next meeting. But I would suggest not, if you want to go in that direction, I would suggest not acting on this task order tonight.
Okay, is there any further comments, questions from council members? Okay, Councilmember Tull and then Councilmember Clark.
It was actually helpful, Sarah, to know that you've been asking them to shuffle stuff around instead of coming back to keep it current. I mean, for me, that changes things. I understand how that happens. I just didn't want it to be completely unknown. I wanted to understand what happens. So your explanation, Sarah, helped me. I understand that those things happen with a project. I just wanted to know that we knew where the money was going. And it sounds like they were asked to do things above and beyond what they had signed up for. So thank you.
Councilmember Clark.
Yeah, I think for me, it's just kind of, I know it gets frustrating on our end to just see somebody just ballpark and say, yeah, our senior engineer, one of the more costly members, is the one that handled all of the calls apparently from 2019 till date. And then also to say that, this goes through 2021, but then maybe retract that it actually says to present. I think that's where it got confusing too, because there wasn't really a definitive clarification that said, this is the billing through 2021 that we feel confident about. It sounds like it's just for work already done up until today. And then there's even more that's going to occur on top of that. I'm not sure. My concern of us tabling it now and waiting till later is, of course, we've already seen the effects of the cost of waiting, which we've had to point out almost every project that we've had to go through approval for council, is that I fear that this number is only going to start to double and triple with, paying people to tell us the things that I feel like we should know, as far as like how old the pipes are along Burlington, how long, how old those water lines are. If we have no record of any water lines and anything that tells us what's underground, that is a little frustrating. And I guess we're starting from scratch to know what exists in our city. I think Anthony Sands, I thought, and correct me if I'm wrong on her name, but I thought that we had some sort of mapping of what's out there. And I would like to see, if we're already going to be tearing it up, let's knock everything out that we possibly can. That's, within budget, which everything is falling outside of budget. I guess my thought is, do we have a ballpark idea, which probably not, of what the cost is of waiting on approving tonight versus continuing to put this off?
If I may, I'll answer. I don't think that 2 weeks will make a difference. And I think that we are by acting on a different number than Olson has proposed in their task order, we'd be putting Mr. Hofflander in a position he's not really, he's not authorized by the firm to take. So I think that is something that you should not do. Allow us to work with the management of Olson to bring back to you 2 task orders, but 2 weeks, assuming we can come back to you in 2 weeks, that will not make a substantial difference in terms of cost.
Councilmember Smith.
Yeah, and Amy, we're not putting off the project itself. We're just pushing back the task force. So yeah, I would move to table this until the next meeting or until the information's available.
We have a motion to table this.
Second.
And we have a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Toll,
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Roberts,
Yes.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Plumby,
Yes.
Councilmember Graves,
No.
Councilmember Saper.
Oh, yes.
7-1, motion carried. Item 16, award of contract, Walker Road intersection improvements, resolution number 21-034.
Here.
Thank you, sir. I'll call on Ms. Copeland.
Traffic studies that were completed in conjunction with the Armour Road redevelopment area identified a need to make improvements to the intersection of Armour Road and Walker Road. And in December of 2018, the City Council entered into a contract with McClure Engineering to complete a traffic study of that intersection. McClure then recommended improvements to the intersection based on that traffic study and put together the plans, which are before you in this contract. This was a project that we had planned to bid last spring, but it was put on hold due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The engineer's estimate, as you know, this is referenced in the previous item, the engineer's estimate, which was prepared a year ago, was $123,263. Based on that, we did reduce the amount budgeted, which had been $325,000 to $149,000. When we opened the 2 bids that we received on April 29th, they were both over the budgeted amount. The low bidder was Mega KC, $215,300. Staff recommends award of contract to Mega KC and the approval of the budget amendment, which is the next item on your agenda. The proposed budget amendment would provide for the total contract amount plus a 20% contingency. I would be happy to answer any questions you might have about this.
Councilmember Toll.
I know this probably goes without saying, but I just want to say it out loud. When you choose your recommendation, I know they have the lowest bid, but you are also aware of the quality of the company, correct?
Yes, we've worked with Mega KC on quite a few projects and feel comfortable with their ability to complete the project.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, I should say it is the lowest and best bid that we look for. We have no concerns about Mega as the low bidder.
Councilmember Smith.
Okay, so a number of things with this one. I was part of the council that approved this back when, and at the time it was a great suggestion. I like the redesign. It was the traffic was backing up way far back in that right turn lane, creating some traffic issues on 210. And then if you were in the left lane, you kind of get stuck turning into the hospital, whether you wanted to go to the hospital or not. That's where you're going. So, and a number of other things that were going to make that intersection much better for high traffic. Now things are different. So I'm not sure Cerner is even ramping back up to full employment at any point, or if they're going to be remote more so. So are we still seeing, or do we even know, are we still seeing the queuing in that right turn lane that we saw before, which was the reason for extending it and changing the shape of the entire intersection? So do we know that at this point?
I could not say whether there's queuing happening in the right turn. I would say that the project also involved reconfiguration of the left turns on eastbound Armour, which would, you know, as you mentioned, if you're in the left turn lane, regardless of where you want to go, you're shunted into the left turn lane into the hospital. And that's going to be a problem whether or not the queues are long. One of the things that MoDOT does is tries to project traffic, 40 years down the road. And while, I think that you can make arguments about, the kinds of assumptions they make, the reality is that they are trying to manage a system so that we do not have to continually make improvements over time. And even if we're going to overshoot the queue lengths on this, the lane configuration is the thing that I think is most important about it. This project doesn't involve any additional pavement. It's really about moving where those traffic lanes are. And I think that that is still important.
Okay. I know one of the big discussion points during that meeting was the queuing in that left turn lane right side of it that blocked traffic. And that was really why I was much more for it. The turn lane shunting you into the hospital, that's a problem. And then there's an adjustment to the arrows that were going to bring you back out onto 210. At this point, though, with the uncertainty around whether Cerner needs this for the queuing and the drastic increase in price. And then one other piece is the bike master plan has been approved in the interim, which mentions getting east of Armour with bike lanes, with bike infrastructure. None of that's factored in. And if Cerner is a major employer, we're talking a lot of people who live in North Kansas City could potentially bike to work. It may be a good idea to revisit adding that sort of infrastructure into this intersection redo rather than redoing it and then tearing it back up to redo again.
Councilmember Saber, Graves, Plumbee.
I think Jesse said it. It seems we need to revisit this whole thing at this point to see if it, one, the necessity, two, the expandability of bike lanes and other features that we've discussed many times in this council. So I am opposed to going forward at this time.
Councilmember Graves.
Yeah, so I actually have a question. I don't know who can answer this, but who exactly is responsible? I mean, this 210 highway is a state highway, correct? Missouri Highway 210.
Yes,
so
this is MoDOT right of way.
So at what point does it become our responsibility, and at what point is it the state's, if it's a state highway? This 210 highway, like at what point, if you're traveling east?
So my understanding,
you mean where
where does Armour Road actually transition, I guess, from Armour Road to a state highway? At what point?
It's in the intersection of Armour and Ozark. That's where the transition point is. So Armour Road east of Ozark is MoDOT right of way, and west of Ozark, it's city right of way.
But the rationale, if I may, for this project, sir, the reason that we brought it forward as a city project is that MoDOT simply indicated it was something they would not do. And if we wanted it done, it was going to have to be something that the city would undertake.
That's kind of where I was going with this. And this document is 106 pages long. Where's the time frame in here? Like, how long would something like this last? Like, would it be under construction for weeks, months? Like, how much of a nightmare would 210 and Walker Road be while this was under construction?
It is in here. We do define the period of time for construction.
Looks like Exhibit D, contract period.
Yes.
So they're thinking like 45 days.
Yes. So we provide them with 45 days from the notice to proceed to finish the work.
Okay. And are there proposals to extend bike lanes through this area, as previously mentioned by other council members? Because that would, if we eventually extend bike lanes east into this area, then are we going to have to redo the whole project all over again in the future at some point? Is this?
No, because if we were to extend anything this far east along 210, it would not be something that would involve the travel lanes here. So if you look at the recommended bicycle network that's in the bicycle master plan, what it shows east of Vernon is shared use path, and then the use of the old Birmingham Road right of way. So that blue line that's shared use path would not, we have talked to MoDOT, and it's theoretically possible to add that, but it would not be something that would impact most of the area of this project. The impact would be when you went to cross 210, because you would want to put that on the south side. You'd need to cross 210 to go north at some point to connect to anything behind the hospital. So theoretically, you might need to reconstruct one of the channelizing islands there on the east side of the intersection. The way that these have been designed by McClure, they're already being cut back as part of this project. So you likely wouldn't, if you had to reconstruct any islands, it would be pretty minor. We had looked into adding cutouts for those as part of a crossing in that location, and MoDOT didn't want to add anything where we weren't adding crosswalk and sidewalk. So if you were to put in bike lanes in the future, the way, the idea for how to do that today, the thing you would have to reconstruct would be those islands, the two islands on the east. Actually, it's just one island and a median on the east side of the intersection. And that is not, a majority of the work that's being done.
That makes sense. So they would cross east on the east side to the south side of Armor 210 and then connect to Diamond Parkway in that area on the south side of Armor, not the north.
Yeah, the idea would be that you would extend the cycle track from Diamond Parkway further to the east on the south side of 210. And then when you got to the Walker Road intersection, you would cross north on the east side of Walker Road to connect with whatever we might put in the future behind the hospital.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Member Palumbi.
So I think I probably use this turn more than anyone, just because there's only really two entrances into the hospital. It's Walker Road and then it's Clay Edwards. So like I think a few other people have already mentioned, and this happened before, I was on the council. I don't know that this has as much of an issue as it may have been when this was initially approved, based on the traffic that I've personally seen on that exit. So that's one thing I think that we should consider, is this may be more of an inconvenience to people who are coming through that exit as opposed to maybe a necessity, especially with the fact that this budget has pretty much doubled from what we were initially quoted. And we do know that construction projects right now are just really expensive compared to what they may have been before COVID. So I would say that we do need to take that into consideration. The second thing that we would need to take into consideration is, if this project would take 45 days to complete, how is that going to impact people who are going to try and need to get into the hospital? And I would say specifically patients, because there's a parking garage on that side of the hospital that is like the closest proximity for patients who can't walk very far and would need closer access to the main entrance of the hospital. And so I do have concerns as to how that would impact our patients who are going to try and get in from that side of the hospital.
Thank you for that. Councilmember Clevenger, I had you next.
My questions have been answered, actually. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. All right, back to open. Councilmember Smith, and then Councilmember Savory.
The question for Anna, did you say that the queuing is not happening as much as it did before, or I misunderstood what you said there?
So I would say there's a significant decrease in what it used to look like. And that predominantly comes because Cerner is pretty much all working from home as of now. I know that there's plans for some of their members to eventually come back. But I do think that over the pandemic, they did realize that a lot of their project managers can do a lot of their work without having to be there. And so I don't know exactly what, coming back to work looks like for them, but it predominantly is members of North Kansas City that are going to be using that exit, or anybody who's going to cross into Avondale and go to the other side.
Okay, thank you. So to staff, I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. We've got some good engineering drawings here. We've got some good progress made with redesigning the intersection. But given the unknown with Cerner and how they're ramping back up to employment, can we table this and have a discussion with them to see what their needs are at this point? And potentially look at what it would look like to actually design in the bike piece of it in conjunction with MoDOT. There's just so many unknowns right now. I don't want to vote it down and kill the project entirely, but there are discussions that need to be had before we can really make a vote on this.
So I'm sorry, Councilmember Saper, I'm going to jump in real quick. I wanted to thank Councilmember Smith for actually bringing up the point on the bike master plan, and we definitely have approved that work and been working, towards that over the last several years. So I would like to see us, pursue something that considers that. And it's like mentioned, it's a large employer, and it's one of those most eastern points we definitely need to make sure we're connecting to within the city. So, I think it's important that we make sure, we factor that in, not just this project, but any of these projects that we do. So I thank you for bringing that up, and I will call on Councilmember Saber.
2 questions. One, why did the Missouri Department of Transportation decline to do this project on a state highway? What were their reasons? And number 2, since this will benefit primarily the Cerner Corporation, if their employment at that site really gets back to what it was, have we approached them to actually do some cost sharing on this?
The answer to the second question is no. It's a city street, Walker, and when it comes to doing city infrastructure, generally speaking, the city would undertake the cost. With regard to, and Sarah, you can jump in if you have any other thoughts, with regard to why the state isn't doing it, I think that their view of the matter was that the benefit was primarily on Walker more than on State Road 210, that there wasn't a huge problem in terms of traffic flow on State Route 210, and so it wasn't a project that they would undertake, but they were willing to allow the city to do it if the city thought that there would be benefits. And at least at the time that this was put in the budget, the city did think that there would be benefits to travelers on Walker and into the hospital and into Cerner.
So Councilmember Toll and then back to Smith.
I think what Jesse had brought up before, I think this is a great time to reach out to Cerner and they've been thinking obviously what their long-term plan and future of having people in person versus remote looks like. They may have a projected date of how many people they expect to come back. If they were to tell us, you know what, we're going to get everybody back here by X date, and that's our plan, then we could maybe get this done while fewer people are using the intersection. But if they're entertaining keeping a certain percentage of people at home, working from home, that could change our plan. So I think just reaching out to them and coming back in short order would be appropriate.
All right. Any other comments? Seeing none, is there some sort of motion here?
I would move to table this pending further discussion and information.
All right, you're on a roll tonight. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, call the roll, please.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Toll?
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Roberts?
Yes.
Councilmember Clark?
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbi?
Yes.
Councilmember Graves?
Yes.
Councilmember Saper?
Yes.
8-0, motion carried. Item 17, budget amendment, Walker Road intersection improvements, resolution number 21-039.
Eric.
I assume that since council has tabled the previous item, that it would also wish to not act on this item.
Do we have what is this resolution?
Move to table this item.
Second.
Right, call the roll, please.
Hold on. Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Toll?
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Roberts?
Yes.
Councilmember Clark?
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbi?
Yes.
Councilmember Graves?
Yes.
Councilmember Saper?
Yes.
8-0, motion carried. Item 18, award of contract, Howe Bump Out Construction, resolution number 21-035.
Eric.
Thank you, sir. I'll call him Ms. Copeland.
In 2019, the city installed temporary bump outs on Howell Street near Mackin Park as a pilot project to address speeding. And when that project was well received in 2020, the City Council directed staff to move forward with installation of permanent bump outs and median islands. In March of 2020, we advised council that Wilson and Company had estimated a cost for the design and construction, and they moved forward with the design of the permanent improvements to be put out to bid. When we did that last September, the bids were well above the engineer's estimate, and so we declined to award the project to wait to rebid the project again this spring to see if bids would be lower. We opened 3 bids for this project on April 30th, and the low bid was close to the low bid last year. It's from McConnell and Associates, $116,387. We are putting this before the council and recommending that if you would like to move forward with permanent construction of these, that the contract be awarded to McConnell and Associates. And we have a budget amendment in the amount of $139,664 following this item. This item does not appear in this year's budget. So the budget amendment would allow for the contract amount plus a contingency. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
I'm almost nervous to start. Councilmember Smith, are you going to table it? Councilmember Smith.
Yeah. So I've been a big advocate of this since the start. I live literally right across the street from where this would take place, and I have a small child, and we cross that street all the time going to the park, as do many families who live in the Gardens, Northgate Village, and all the apartments up and down Swift. It's a very busy spot for pedestrians. At the time when we did the temporary ones, they've shown that they slow traffic down. I believe with this, we'd be reinstalling some of those mid posts that really bring traffic down, traffic speeds down. I hate added costs as much as everybody else, but this one I'm absolutely ready to move forward with. My bigger concern, and this is something overarching that like we really need to figure out, is how we're missing things by nearly 100% in costs. And this is not exclusive to one engineering firm. We've got McClure, Wilson and Company, and the people we hired to do the ballpark engineering. Everyone is missed by a factor of almost 100%. So we need to figure out what's going on there, or at least just assume that we need to spend more money when we greenlight projects. So I would be fully in favor of this.
Councilmember Toll.
I'm also in favor of this. When my kids were little, I actually wrote to the city because we go every day, and I think maybe 5 times a car had stopped, which made it even more dangerous because the car on the other side didn't stop. But the other reason to get this done and get it done now is that Briarcliff Elementary, so all elementary students that live here, are going to be going to the building that is across from the park, Norclay, and they could be potentially crossing right there at the park coming from the neighborhood. So the sooner we could do this, we're going to have, you know, over 350 students that are going to that location starting in August. So I think the sooner we get it done, the better.
I'll just add one part of this real quick, and then I'll get to everyone else. Part of this does include, I think, right, that 27th Street, which there weren't curb cuts previously, or a sidewalk connecting to the park. So all that is, you know, will be new infrastructure in that area. And then for staff, in this area, I think on the bike master plan, this was either protected lanes or shared use paths.
It's a shared use path.
So this wouldn't interfere in any way if we decided to go forward with.
No, it does not.
Thank you. And then I saw, oh, raise your hands again. Sorry, short term. Councilmember Clark, then Clevenger.
I was just going to say, yes, I'm for this. I like that we're prioritizing pedestrian traffic at this time over some of our car traffic, because as we've seen with the flip and upside down in this past year, there are a lot more people leaving their house. And as the parents have stated tonight, that they're looking for that safety. So I'm all for this project as well. It is painful, obviously, that it's double the cost, but it's something we need to do.
Councilmember Clevenger.
Definitely in favor of this project. This is a busy street, a lot of family with the kids and everything crossing to the park. And like they mentioned, Briarcliff Elementary. You know, some of these costs back in 2019 or what have you, we didn't anticipate COVID, and they've gone up quite a bit. And like you say, it's against all different engineering firms, but maybe us as a council have to realize that when we get a bid, it's certainly going to be more than that, and factor that into our decision. I'm sure COVID and the construction material increase has caused a lot of these cost increases, and I don't know if they'll ever go back down, but definitely let's keep the kids safe and let's get this project done.
Councilmember Safer than Toll.
Have the pylons effectively slowed traffic down over the last year or so? And okay, I'm getting a thumbs up there. And if they have, I'm wondering about the improvement, if any, if we went ahead with this project at this time, instead of waiting for a more realistic price.
I could speak to that real quick, since I sit on my front porch and watch it happen. When we had the stop piece in the middle, it slowed it down significantly more. And that's gone. It's been run over 100 times, but that will come back with this and be a more permanent solution. In addition, the pylons, they were never supposed to be permanent. They're not a good look at all. And it's the curbs were the ultimate solution when we started the project, and they are something you can't run over. If somebody decides they want to drive wild, they can run right over the sticks and have no real penalty. Curbs are not going to be that way. So I see a benefit to it. People do stop now when they didn't before.
Councilmember Toll.
I agree with that as well, and they were temporary. Also, I think the bump outs just do a much better job of visually closing that street in. I just wanted to say, for people that might be listening to this, Briarcliff is not moving to North Clay permanently. They are being completely renovated and added on to. So this is a 1 year thing. I just didn't want somebody to hear this and think, oh my gosh, they're going to be here forever. It's 1 year.
I wouldn't be opposed. It's a short walk for me. Councilmember Roberts.
Yeah, I'll just put my 2 cents in here. I walk it every day, usually 1 or 2 times, and it's, I mean, I'd say 50% of the time. So I'm waiting on somebody that's flying through there still between the markers. So the third marker is going to be a big improvement, but those pylons are ugly, and people know they can hit them, and it doesn't do anything. There's no like recourse really on that. But in terms of cost, I mean, it's never going to go down. Construction's not going to come back to those numbers we saw before. So I think when we get these bids, you know, that like catching up on all these bids that were predating my time here, you know, it's frustrating as a citizen, but frustrating to see, you know, these costs double some of these times or more. So I think we need to take into consideration that things aren't going to get cheaper. They're only going to go more and more expensive here. And this is much needed. I mean, the pilot program's gone through and was successful, and this is a good improvement. And I think we should get it done.
Thank you. Councilmember Graves.
Yeah, just probably outnumbered on this one, but I'm leaning no on this, and for a few reasons. There are speed bumps there, correct? Like on this road, and I think that helps slow people down. You're still going to have psychos that speed through speed bumps and bump outs, etc. I think it was Councilmember Smith just mentioned that, you know, people can run over the those white sticks, that I forget the name of those stupid things, and they can't run over curbs, which it's interesting that that was mentioned, because just the other day I was walking down Armour Road. I believe it's Armour and Iron where they have installed bump outs, and those things have tire tracks all over them, to the point where there's one bump out that should be painted yellow, and people have run over it so many times that it's just black. And at one point it was kind of humorous that there's tire tracks in the bicycle lane at one point by Dag Park, to where at some point in time there was a car driving through the bicycle lane. Like there were tire tracks actually in between the bump out and the sidewalk. And so just installing these bump outs, it's going to look much better, but it's double the budget. It's way over budget, and we're still going to have psychos driving through there, driving over the bump outs, etc. So it'll look nicer, but it's way over budget, and I don't think it's going to slow down. There's still being crazy people So that's my 2 cents. Thanks.
Councilmember Toll.
There are not speed bumps on Hal. You might be thinking of Swift. We've got what were supposed to be crosswalk islands that are now just speed bumps, but they're not on Howell. I agree with what Adam said before. The first phase was a trial. This was the end result of that trial. It was successful, and I move to approve.
We do have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, call the roll.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Toll,
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Roberts,
Yes.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbi,
Yes.
Councilmember Graves,
No.
Councilmember Saper.
No.
6-2, motion carries. Number 19, budget amendment, Hal Bump Out Construction, resolution number 21-038.
Eric.
Thank you, sir. In accordance with the action that the council took just a moment ago, now before you is a budget amendment in the amount of $139,664, which is the contract amount that you approved of $116,387 plus a 20% contingency.
Any comments? Seeing no comments, is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
We have first, second, call the roll, please.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Toll,
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Roberts,
Yes.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbi,
Yes.
Councilmember Graves,
No.
Councilmember Saper.
No.
6-2, motion carried. Number 20, agreement with ClearGov for budget book and transparency portal purposes, resolution number 21-036.
Eric.
Thank you, sir. I'll call on the finance manager, Nick Hawkins.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. City staff has been looking for ways to provide a budget document in both digital and print format that follows the Government Finance Officers of America best practices to create an informative and easy to follow budget document for council, staff, and residents. Over the past few years, staff has inquired about digital budget book services and recommends working with the company ClearGov based on their budget and data visualization structure, ease of use, and pricing. Implementing a digital budget book transforms the budget from a more static document to an interactive planning and priorities document that can be easily referenced throughout the year. The contract with ClearGov includes digital budget book service that would automate several pieces of the budget process for staff. Staff envisions that the city would keep several elements of the current budget document in the short term, but this would open up possibilities of adding strategic planning and performance management components to provide a more comprehensive policy and financial document that would be a tool for both the council and staff for years to come. Shawnee, Kansas is a local example that has recently implemented ClearGov's digital budget book service. I've spoken with their finance manager. They've had positive feedback across the board and have been using this for budget planning sessions and for their budget book for the last few years. Second piece of this service contract is a transparency portal, which is a collection of data from an organization that is regularly updated and easily accessible to the public as well as staff. ClearGov, services offered by ClearGov would include a searchable checkbook that allows residents to view individual transactions updated on a regular basis, as well as detailed views of revenues and expenditures in the city. There is anticipation that the state of Missouri will soon pass legislation requiring this information to be provided by cities, and staff believes that the data transparency services provided by ClearGov will meet that requirement. In addition, the transparency portal will have the capacity to provide regular updates on projects going on within the city, as well as other key performance metrics. Cass County is an example of a local government organization that currently uses that transparency service. And speaking with Shawnee, they mentioned that there were several cities and counties in Kansas that were also looking at this service. So ClearGov has been an up and coming partner in this service for the last couple of years. Pricing for this service order agreement is $4,667 for the remainder of fiscal year 2021. For 2022, staff anticipates a cost of $14,080, which would be included in the fiscal year 2022 budget, and that includes a one-time setup fee. Staff has been working with ClearGov to set up the city's profile in order to implement the book and portal for the FY 2022 operating budget. I actually met with ClearGov staff this morning, and they have already set up the financial data for the book, as well as the base look for the transparency portal. So if approved tonight, we would be ready to roll out the book and portal in time for the FY22 budget submittal in August. This agreement, however, is contingent upon your review and approval, and it can be revoked at no cost to the city if the council does not approve. Staff recommends approval, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, do we have any questions? Councilmember Roberts.
Just going through the website for Cass County, it seems like this for in terms of transparency, which seems to be on a lot of citizens' minds, this is a terrific way that's not a binder that weighs more than my dog, for people to see and understand in plain terms. I really, really like this. It seems very intuitive, and I'm all for going into a much easier to understand and navigate, especially, you know, a budget and how convoluted that those can be, you know, thousands of pages of documents. I'd rather not see printed anymore. So I'm all for this.
You don't want the big thick binder?
No, thank you.
Councilmember Smith.
Yeah, I also hate the dog binders. We may recoup most of this money on printing costs, so I'll move to approve.
All right, there is a first.
Second.
And second, any further comments? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Toll?
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Roberts?
Yes.
Councilmember Clark?
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbi?
Yes.
Councilmember Graves?
Yes.
Councilmember Saper?
Yes.
8-0, motion carried. Item 21, reinstatement of inadvertently removed definitions from the city code regarding bicycles and pedestrians. Bill number 7600, ordinance number 9397.
Here. Thanks, sir. I'll call on Ms. Copeland.
The ordinance that is before you is solely to correct a drafting error that happened in 2018 at the time that we were making amendments to the city code related to bicycling after a code audit about all of our bicycle related ordinances. We accidentally, in a follow-up ordinance, deleted the definitions for bicycle, motorized bicycle, and pedestrians. This ordinance would add those definitions back to section 10.04.010. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
All right, do we have any questions? Come. First reading. Is there? See your box light up. I didn't hear anything. Was that you, Councilmember Smith?
Oh, I did you call first reading? Can you do that?
I did.
Clark has first reading.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Toll?
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Roberts?
Yes.
Councilmember Clark?
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbi?
Yes.
Councilmember Graves?
Yes.
Councilmember Saper?
Yes.
8-0, motion carried. An ordinance amending the code of the city of North Kansas City, Missouri by amending chapter 10.04, definitions thereof.
I move that bill number 7600 be placed on second and final reading and passes ordinance number 9397.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, call the roll, please.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Toll?
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Roberts?
Yes.
Councilmember Clark?
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbi?
Yes.
Councilmember Graves?
Yes.
Councilmember Saper?
Yes.
8-0, motion carried. An ordinance amending the code of the city of North Kansas City, Missouri by amending chapter 10.04, definitions thereof. Item 22, memorandum of understanding with the North Kansas City School District School Resource Officer.
Here.
Thank you, sir. I'll call on the police chief, Kevin Freeman.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. What you have before you tonight is a memorandum of understanding between the city and the school district for placement of one of our police officers in the high school. It's a school resource officer for the upcoming school year. The current agreement expires at the end of this school year, and that is the only major change in this next agreement is the dates of service. So be happy to answer any questions you might have.
All right, do we have any questions? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Toll,
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Roberts,
Yes.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbi,
Yes.
Councilmember Graves,
Yes.
Councilmember Saper.
Yes.
8-0, motion carried. Number 23, budget amendment agreement with North Kansas City Special Road District, Knox Street, 13th Avenue improvements, resolution number 21-033.
Eric.
Thank you, sir. At your last meeting, the city council approved a cost sharing agreement with the North Kansas City Special Road District, whereby the road district will perform a project to improve the roads, curb and gutter, and drainage in the vicinity of 13th Avenue and Knox Street. And the city will pay half the cost of the project up to a maximum of $225,000. Since the council has committed to that funding, now before the council is a budget amendment and the gaming fund to appropriate the amount necessary.
Any comments? Seeing none, is there a motion? Oh, I'm sorry, Councilmember Saper. Councilmember Saper.
As I said before, not extending this project to Iron Street leaves it an incomplete project. And for that reason, I can't support that. It needs to go further than it has.
Is there any further comments on this item? Seeing none, is there a motion on the item?
Move to approve.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Toll,
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger,
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts,
Yes.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbi,
Yes.
Councilmember Graves,
Yes.
Councilmember Saper.
No.
7-1, motion carried. Item 24, First Amendment to Agreement of Purchase and Sale with 18th and Swift LLC. Bill number 7601, ordinance number 9398.
Eric.
Thank you, sir. I'll call on the city councilor, Tom Barzee.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. With your permission, I'd like to be able to talk simultaneously about this and the next item on the agenda, since they're interconnected with each other. As you know, there are two separate agreements: an agreement to purchase property, acquire property from 18th and Swift LLC, and there's also the parking development agreement with between the city and Store Safe 4. Due to no fault of anyone, the parking plan for the post-closing transaction with Store Safe is not yet complete, though we met this last week with the engineers, and therefore it is not reasonably possible to complete everything that needs to be done by June 1 for the currently scheduled closing. As a result, the city is not ready to close on the purchase agreement and can't presently meet certain closing requirements of the in that agreement. And then, of course, we can't close with Store Safe on the parking agreement until we've closed on the other one, because we have no property to divide. So primarily what this does is extends both of the closing dates to on or before September 1, 2021. We just don't want to come back a second time to you. And there's a couple of other what I deem to be clerical matters. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
All right, is there any questions on this? Is there a motion for first reading?
First reading.
Second.
There, oh, you jumped in on it. There we go. We have first and second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Toll,
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Roberts,
Yes.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbi,
Yes.
Councilmember Graves,
Yes.
Councilmember Saper.
Yes.
8-0, motion carried. An ordinance adopting and approving First Amendment to Agreement of Purchase and Sale by and between the City of North Kansas City, Missouri and 18th and Swift LLC regarding certain real property generally located at 200 East 16th Avenue and an abutting railroad tract in North Kansas City, Missouri.
Right.
I move that bill number 7601 be placed on second and final reading and passes ordinance number 9398.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Tull,
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Roberts,
Yes.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbi,
Yes.
Councilmember Graves,
Yes.
Councilmember Saper.
yes,
8-0, motion carried. An ordinance adopting and approving First Amendment to Agreement of Purchase and Sale by and between the City of North Kansas City, Missouri and 18th and Swift LLC regarding certain real property generally located at 200 East 16th Avenue and an abutting railroad track in North Kansas City, Missouri. Item 25, First Amendment to Parking Development Agreement with Store Safe 4 LLC, Bill number 7602, ordinance number 9399.
All right, I believe as I already mentioned, he's already talked about this, so I'll go ahead and open it up to the council and if they have questions.
First.
Go ahead.
First reading.
Is there a second?
Second.
There you go. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Tull,
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Roberts,
Yes.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbi,
Yes.
Councilmember Graves,
Yes.
Councilmember Saper.
yes,
8-0, motion carries. An ordinance adopting and approving First Amendment to Parking Development Agreement by and between the City of North Kansas City, Missouri and Store Safe 4 LLC.
I move that bill number 7602 be placed on second and final reading and passes ordinance number 9399.
Second.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Tull,
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Roberts,
Yes.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbi,
Yes.
Councilmember Graves,
Yes.
Councilmember Saper.
yes,
8-0, motion carried. An ordinance adopting and approving First Amendment to Parking Development Agreement by and between the City of North Kansas City, Missouri and Store Safe 4 LLC. Item 26, approving accounts due and payable by the city through May 14th, 2021. Bill number 7603, ordinance number 9400.
Do we have a first reading?
First reading.
Second.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Tull,
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Roberts,
Yes.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbi,
Yes.
Councilmember Graves,
Yes.
Councilmember Saper.
yes,
8-0, motion carried.
Staff. Oh,
Wait a minute.
there's a
An
second.
ordinance authorizing payment for certain accounts due and payable by the city through May 14th, 2021.
I move that bill number 7603 be placed on second and final reading and passes ordinance number 9400.
Second.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Tull,
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Roberts,
Yes.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbi,
Yes.
Councilmember Graves,
Yes.
Councilmember Saper.
yes,
8-0, motion carried. An
All right.
ordinance authorizing payment for certain accounts due and payable by the city through May 14th, 2021.
I'm way ahead of myself tonight. I apologize to our fabulous clerk. I'm sorry for stepping over you. Staff comments.
Thanks, sir. We have a couple of reports in your packet. The upcoming city items of note: North Kansas City Hospital COVID-19 report. The only other staff comment, and I'd appreciate some council discussion regarding your meeting protocol going forward. So you had previously directed us back when Clay County had indicated that it would intended to remove its emergency health order on May 28th. You had instructed us to put on the June 1st agenda a discussion item to consider coming back and meeting in person on June 15th. As everybody knows, the timetable was accelerated, and Clay County removed its emergency health order last week, which does cause staff to ask you if you as well would like to discuss coming back to meeting in person on an accelerated timetable to have your next regular meeting on June 1st instead of June 15th. If it would, our intention, unless council indicated otherwise, would be to continue to implement the socially distanced seating arrangement that we had discussed with the city council, for the city council and for the staff, and also for the public at that meeting. And so I would like to determine if you are interested in doing that at your next meeting on June 1st.
I'll jump on real quick. I do feel like we had some sound logic and, you know, at least the calendar-based decision to push it to the second meeting in June, and would definitely be 100% on board with that, but also open to whatever else council has to say on that. I think I saw Councilmember Graves. What's your hand up? Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm 100% on board with coming back to in-person council meetings. I know a lot of the people that I run into on the street that are residents, they're all in favor of going back to in-person council meetings, and many people have voiced their concern with me and want to actually sit in-person meetings. I am somebody that has worked. You know, I was at work today. Went to Hy-Vee today. There's people at Hy-Vee with no mask. There's people at Lowe's with no mask. At this point, I do think we should proceed with caution and take the staff's recommendations as far as the layout of the room, who's allowed in the meeting, things of that nature. Maybe limit the occupancy of the room to allow for social distancing. But I'm 100% in favor of going back our next meeting. And I also just want to point out that I have a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old and 2 cats. And the fact that I have not had like a crazy Zoom event up until now is pretty much a miracle. And so I'd like to quit while I'm ahead.
All right, do we have any? Councilmember Smith?
Yeah, I think the logic with the mid-June, and we're talking the difference in one meeting. The mid-June meeting was to give everyone who wanted to be fully vaccinated the opportunity to do so. And at that point, mid-June would give everyone the 2 weeks pass, 2 shots. So I just stick with that. That seems like the safest route. And then at that point, following CDC guidance, we could distance out. We may not even need to wear masks for these 3 to 7 hour ordeals. We'll figure that out as we go. But I think we have that discussion at our next meeting, see where numbers are at. I know numbers are rising a little bit at North KC Hospital. So, let's just not jump ahead by one meeting.
Mr. Mayor, may I interject? I know Mr. Roberts is that, but I do think that the city councilor might have some insights. And so at some point, I'd like to ask him to speak to this.
My concern, quite candidly, that I expressed the other day to the city administrator is we can hold these meetings as long as there is a declared emergency. Now, it doesn't have to be a county or whatever emergency, but online meetings were authorized instead of in-person meetings based upon authorization in the Sunshine Law. The Attorney General weighed in on it and had no issue. I'm not saying anything's come out about this. I'm just being cautious, and that's what you asked me to be. And certainly I don't want us to have an issue that we're not properly conducting a meeting. But when I did check, it didn't appear that the state emergency order originally entered by the governor has been repealed. So I'm not taking the absolute position that you must, but it's just something I think you folks need to weigh in on. And I certainly understand what Councilman Smith saying, and I certainly understand the other side of it with Councilman Graves is saying. So it's your call, but I wanted you folks to at least consider the fact, is this still an emergency, a health emergency? And if it is, then it's appropriate to continue to have your meetings like you are.
Thank you. I'm going to jump over to Councilmember Follenby.
So I agree with Jesse in terms of maybe not jumping the gun, specifically because as you guys can see from the COVID-19 report at the hospital, our numbers are actually up and they have been over the last month. And in addition to that, I hate masks as much as anyone else, maybe more than anyone, because I've had to wear them more than the average person over the last year. But I do think that with the mask mandate kind of being lifted for everyone, I think everybody is still kind of in limbo as to when to wear them. And if we kind of need to make a stance in terms of the city hall and kind of what we want to do from a public area standpoint, because I do think that's going to need to be standardized. And my understanding is the mask mandate being lifted is leaving it up to the discretion of individual businesses as to what they want to do. So I think we'll also have to kind of determine whether we are going to say we still need to wear masks while we're on site and make that a requirement, or kind of determine what we want to do from that standpoint. In addition, I would say that I don't have children, but I know that many of you guys do. And currently vaccines are not available for them. And so I would say that for us to say, you know, maybe we don't wear masks would be a little bit jumping the gun, because I know that kids can still transmit COVID. And unfortunately, we don't have vaccines that are safe for kids under the age of 12, which most of you probably have kids in that age group. So I would hesitate to jump the gun and say we should go back to in-person meetings by the 1st, because that is just, you know, a few weeks away. And I do think that we may need to kind of have more of a discussion before we move forward.
Yeah, so to redirect it, I think tonight we probably decide on a date, and if it's going to be the 2nd of June, then we can decide on, you know, what those policies probably look like at our first meeting in June, if that sounds right to Eric. I don't know.
Yes, sir. So it is a discussion item that's currently listed on your next agenda. So yes, you could put any conditions in place that you wanted for coming back.
Okay, perfect. A lot of hands. We're gonna get to everybody here. Councilmember Toll.
I would just thank you so much for your insight. And I would add to that, you don't have to wear a mask inside. The CDC says if you're vaccinated. I would prefer that we do an indoor mask on policy as opposed to checking people's vaccination cards, which I think takes more manpower and gets messy. And I would prefer if we do meet, and when we do meet in person, that masks are required indoors.
Councilmember Safer, please.
Yeah, I agree with Jesse. I mean, the rationale was to give a chance for those who wanted to be fully vaccinated, and doing it in the second meeting in June does that. Second, as I recall, the staff's proposal for seating called for 2 tiers of seating, and that alone is problematic in the sense that one tier would be higher than the other and the other would be lower than the other. It's a visually difficult kind of situation. And people masked sitting at the same level are not going to have any higher risk really than those sitting at the 2 levels with the circulation in the room of the air. So I would ask the staff to reconsider that.
That'll be entirely up to the city council. The idea was to give you space in between yourselves. If that isn't important, then you can all certainly sit up at the same level.
Councilmember Roberts.
Yeah, I also agree with Jesse. I think waiting for the time period makes sense. Of course, I don't think any of us believe that the pandemic is over. That, you know, you can look worldwide; it's not great out there. So mask requirements, I think, is what we really need to figure out what we want to do as a city. I also agree with Councilman Saper, and that the city arrangement is kind of weird. You know, as somebody whose business relies on people sitting around each other, all the last couple of months, people repeatedly said that they don't mind sitting as long as people are masked, even if it's strangers. And I'm fully in agreement with that. But yeah, let's not get it twisted. The pandemic is still fully on everywhere else. You know, even if Kansas City's numbers aren't skyrocketing, places around the country are, and certainly places worldwide like India are having, you know, more people get sick every day than we even have in our city. So let's not forget about the rest of the world.
Councilmember Clevenger.
Yeah, as far as the seating arrangement, I mean, that's something that we can work at or even rotate. either coming back, I think on the 15th is a prudent idea. The thing on the mask though, if the CDC is stated that we're, if you're vaccinated, fully vaccinated, that you don't have to wear a mask indoors. You know, I think for people being able to hear us, that audio system is not great in the council chamber. So me, for one, I would not want to wear a mask coming back because I have been fully vaccinated, and it has shown that it hasn't, you know, it helps with the transmission where you don't transmit it. So that's my 2 cents. Okay on the 15th, but I think the mask mandate, the CDC's gotten rid of it. I don't think that we need to muddy the waters. I mean, we're not going to have tons of people attending these meetings anyway, so I wouldn't be in favor of a mask, having us wear masks indoors.
So I'll jump in again real quick. I mean, at this point, it sounds like we've pretty much hit consensus on at least the second meeting in June. If that sounds fine with everybody, then have a more robust discussion on, you know, specific policies and arrangements at our first meeting in June. Councilmember Graves.
Real quick, Eric, you might have some insight into this, but maybe in lieu of masks, have you guys discussed, you know, like a plastic barrier in between seats? If people, I have no concern about, I'll sit in the front row, I don't care. But if people are concerned about that, is there, what's everyone's thoughts on that? If they perhaps separated us with like a plastic shield versus masking or sitting in tiers?
Better than a mask.
I'll let Eric go ahead if he has a reply on that.
All right. We can do that if council desires. I imagine we could get that done by June 15th, but it isn't something we had planned on.
So you're referring kind of just like a plexiglass, maybe between the council members,
like a hockey timeout penalty box. Yeah.
So we can start. Okay, Councilmember Smith.
Yeah, we can debate masks and policies and seating arrangements at the June 1st meeting like we had planned to. I think Eric was just looking for whether we go back June 1st or not, and it sounds like we're going back when we decide to. So,
and I'm hearing June 2nd. So if everyone wants to continue to think on all those additional policies, then we can definitely hit that at the next meeting. Councilmember Graves.
I guess the point I was trying to make on that was if we were gonna go that route, that might take time to implement. So if on the first meeting in June, if you guys are like, hey, let's install plexiglass, the city might not have time to install those by the second meeting in June, and then it gets moved down the road. So I was just trying to kind of, I guess, be proactive and have that conversation now. And if people are objecting to the seating arrangement, which is what has been proposed by the city staff, if that's objectionable, then what is acceptable? Because obviously there's some people saying that they don't want to wear a mask. There's some people that are adamant that everyone wears a mask. So I'm just trying to look down the road, and I can see this not being implemented in June.
So can I ask staff, is that something we can look at between now and maybe the first meeting in June? Or is that something that, we could look at timeline and cost and something that I could possibly approve outside?
Yes, sir. We can begin looking at that. We can begin looking at that tomorrow.
So Eric, if I could just jump in real fast, this is Kim. The one thing about the plexiglass in between, and it's just because the way the dais is constructed, it would be considerably tight on a few of those spots. We can pencil it out and show you guys those drawings, but just so you guys understand that the dais it does have some physical constraints with it.
I'll have to just ride a couple more miles so I can squeeze in there. Do we have any further comments on this discussion point? Seeing none, did you have anything else, Eric?
No, sir.
All right, we're on to somewhere, I think, council member comments, and here it is, Councilmember Smith.
Right, a few things from me. Victoria, if you're still with us, do we have any updates on Dag Park?
Yes. Oh, sorry. We are planning to open as normal operations on Saturday, May 29th.
May 29th. All
Yes.
right. Flashy time. Okay, thank you for that. Second thing, I believe it's this Saturday, the Flash Dash is happening in North Kansas City. If you are a runner, I am not, but if you are into that kind of thing, go ahead and get registered. Next up, the garage sale that was supposed to get rained out was a big hit on the 15th, but I believe we made the decision ahead of the rain to go ahead and allow it on the 22nd as well. So if you didn't get your knickknacks out and sold on the 15th, go ahead and plan to do it this coming Saturday. My daughter and I will probably be around to pick up some of those. And then finally, with the mask ambiguity right now, just so we're clear, we're under no mask order from the county or the city at this point, but businesses do have the right to still require them. If you're going into businesses and arguing with people, figure out what's wrong with you and stop it. If somebody asks you to put a mask on, just do it and don't argue with the business owner. It is completely their right to require it in their private place of business. So be safe out there, and that's all from me.
Councilmember Toll.
I just wanted to thank Councilmember Palumbi for your unique perspective on a lot of our items today. Thank you for that. And yeah, I thought it was a good meeting, and I look forward to talking about what we're going to do in city spaces on our June meeting.
Thank you. Councilmember Clevenger.
Just a couple of things. Wanted to congratulate Kim on her appointment as interim city administrator. Had my first library board meeting last night. The library starting next Monday will be open limited hours for browsing and going in, so you won't need to make an appointment. They will still do curbside at this time, so that's going to continue. And also wanted to thank, I know we approved some stuff for the tourism grant for River North, and wanted to thank Joe Gower for all his work that he does with River North. Thanks.
Councilmember Roberts.
I don't have anything really. I mean, the garage sales was my big thing last week, and Jesse already kind of talked about it. And I guess I look forward to doing that. For those keeping up with my biking, it's been raining every day. There's actual hurricane weather coming. That's fascinatingly why the weather is going from south to north. But yeah, so that's just, we'll see what I can pick up in the next 12 days, 13 days. Yeah, that's all I got.
I better update you on mine real quick. I'm getting 0.31 at a time as I come back and forth to City Hall. So you better watch out. 1,000 trips later, I'll catch up.
I get a mile.
Councilmember Clark.
I was going to ask Adam, what is your mile count? I'm at 246, not quite the 300 to 400 mark that I guess I was hoping for. You set this really high bar of 20 miles per day for this month, which is, I have to work out twice a day, and one of them can't be a bike ride. It has to be outside with the rain, so I bike inside, and yeah, that's quite a challenge. So I understand. What was your count?
Mine is terrible right now. I was off to such a good start. I haven't 200 yet. I'm like at like 160. But it's rained every day. I don't like biking inside. I have a bike. That's for cold days. Rainy days are for sitting on the couch and doing nothing.
Okay. So that's one of my fun updates.
I need to start riding to another city hall a little bit farther away, get some more miles.
Yeah. And I just want to say thank you to Crystal, because everybody else kind of covered all the other things I wanted to say. Just thank you again, Crystal, for your patience with us as we jump the gun this evening.
Council member on my sheet that I've filed away already. Because I don't like that. I'll see. Council member Palumbi. There we go.
I wanted to say thanks everyone for an awesome meeting. It's good to be back with everyone. I want to thank Councilwoman Clark for holding down Ward 4 while I was on medical leave. I heard people were wondering where I was. And then I also want to congratulate Kim as well. And then I want to thank Jesse for taking one for the team and tabling half of our agenda tonight. So that the rest of us didn't have to. And then, yeah, that's kind of all I have to say. I'm also excited about the garage sale this weekend because I missed it last weekend. So this will be my first participation in a garage sale. So I'm excited about that.
Thank you. And I'm glad you're back. Councilmember Graves.
Yeah, so it's been an exciting week. I was very excited when Clay County moved us into the green phase, and I just hope we don't blow it. So stay safe out there, everybody, and let's keep moving forward. And I'm very excited to be on council. And one thing I've been working on is trying to get more people in our community active with the city. And something I talked to Mayor DeLong about recently is our boards are very like Ward 1 and Ward 2 are very overrepresented on our boards. So if you live in the Avenues or Sunny Hills or French Quarters or River Forest and you're watching this meeting, you're obviously trying to be informed and active with your city. And I invite you to apply to be on a board. We need more representatives from Wards 3 and 4. And then also, I don't know if you guys are aware, but I would like to see more residents of North Kansas City working for the city of North Kansas City. And there are job openings right now. One is an entry-level position, and you can go to nkc.org/jobs. So I see people, looking for jobs all the time. And if you're graduating high school, looking for an entry-level position, stay right here and work for the city of North Kansas City and get active in the community. We have openings on board. So if you live in Ward 3 and 4, we'd love to have you. Thanks.
All right, brings it up to me. Not much to add to that.
No.
Oh, Saper, I already crossed you off. I'm failing all over the place.
No.
Councilmember Saper, it's all yours. You can have my time too. Go ahead.
I want to say thank you to the council who's willing to look at the issues, go into the weeds, dig in, and take the time to actually discuss, disagree, and then agree to move forward if necessary. And that doesn't happen always in groups of any kind. Again, let's continue to do that.
I'm just going to wait till someone calls on me. No, I think it's me now, unless there's any other objection here. No, thank you, Councilmember Graves, for bringing up the board appointments. Continue to apply. You don't have to wait till there's an opening. You can apply all the time. We're working on tracking them a little bit better on a spreadsheet now, so I can quickly pull them up and see them. So just get on and apply. I mean, that's the best you can do now. Other than that, I think we had a good meeting. So I will go ahead and move on to number 30. Crystal.
Consideration of a request to hold a recess into an executive session as requested by the city administrator to be held on this date on a real estate matter pursuant to Missouri Revised Statutes, section 610.0212.
Move to approve the recess request.
Second.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Tull?
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Roberts?
Yes.
Councilmember Clark?
Yes.
Councilmember Plumby?
Yes.
Councilmember Graves?
Yes.
Councilmember Saper?
Yes.
All right.
You guys have a good evening.
Yep, have a good one. All right. I think Stephen moved to adjourn.
Oh.
All right, we got enough eligible people. What do we got? 1, 2, 3, 4. Give me one
Welcome
more.
back
One
to
more.
Move to adjourn the city council lock-in.
Second.
All in favor? Do we have 5 of us yet?
Yep.
We now have 5. There is a motion and a second. Seeing no objection. I'm done. I'm done.
Oh, there he is.
Good night, everybody.
There you go. Good night,
Good
everybody.
night. The lock-in.